Hello, everyone, and welcome to EcoPsych EXP, where we take a stroll through the forest of eco-psychological themes in video games. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Casey Edgerton, and I'm a doctoral candidate at Veritas Graduate Institute. My core message is that video games can and do foster ecological empathy and combat apathy and doomism. I love video games, and I see them as a force for so much good, and I hope that this always comes through in my videos. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the incredible game development team I was fortunate enough to be able to interview for this episode, Duck and Run Games. Duck and Run Games is a small German team consisting of 3 former fellow students. They started developing during their studies and are now trying to keep on that journey with their game, Light of Atlantis. Explore the depths of the ocean in this 2D puzzle Metroidvania. Control the water levels and switch between various robots to solve the ancient puzzles of Atlantis. Light of Atlantis consists of 2 core mechanics, water and soul. The players learn to move their soul between different robots to solve small and interesting puzzles. You can't switch robots underwater, though. The water is the realm where your robot can move around freely. Change the water levels using levers and switch between different kinds of robots to explore the ancient ruins of Atlantis. Most Metroidvanias heavily focus on combat, but this game has a clear focus on puzzle solving while still maintaining Metroidvania elements like finding different kinds of robots with different abilities that you can then switch between, backtracking, an interconnected world, and adding abilities to your main robot. Now let's get into the questions. Light of Atlantis focuses on controlling water levels and solving puzzles within the ruins of Atlantis. How do you think the manipulation of water in the game reflects the broader connection between human beings and the natural world, particularly in terms of control, balance, and flow? Alex responded, I think the relationship between humans and the natural world has always been a dialectical one. On the one hand, we fear the forces of nature and regularly experience its destructive power through floods, storms, wildfires, etc. On the other hand, we strive to control those powers and make use of them. When designing elements for our game, we also use a certain dialectical approach by asking ourselves how to create interesting oppositions depending on its land/underwater state. In this sense, the water sometimes is helping the protagonist reach certain places, and sometimes hindering the player, blocking the soul form or making puzzle elements float up. This balance of limitations and empowerment through the water is at the core of our game. I then asked, the game's protagonist is a soul that can inhabit different robots to solve puzzles. How do you see this dynamic of inhabiting other beings as a metaphor for empathy and interconnectedness with the environment, particularly when working within the constraints of the robot's abilities? The response: the constraints of the robots, especially the way each type has a different feel, as well as different abilities and constraints, is the crux here. It's easy for us to empathize with beings that are similar to us, and nowadays easier than ever to isolate ourselves from the ones that are different from us. Our core gameplay makes people switch between different sets of possibilities, which changes their perspective on any given level. They may see a game element and say, oh, I need the other robot, and that really is the essence of our interconnectedness. The above-mentioned isolation is an illusion. We humans depend on each other. We need each other, and our world thrives off of our different skills and perspectives. And of course, we also need our environment to live. Just like the robots by themselves can't get far without the use of the environment, especially the water. In your game, the robots are described as sympathetic, doomed to work for eternity unless helped. How does this theme of eternal labor, alongside the exploration of a forgotten city, speak to the ecological and psychological idea of systems working under duress, either due to human interference or abandonment? The response: for us, the forgotten mythical city of Atlantis is a narrative device to create distance between the players and the setting. This distance shall help reduce biases players might have towards societies they live in and are used to. They open up and are invited to explore and begin to ask themselves, what kind of society was this? Why are things the way they are in here, and how did things end up like this? You could see it as a subtle exercise for potentially asking the same questions considering our current society. Just like in Atlantis, we have islands already falling for rising sea levels, rising temperatures, etc. And despite decades of scientists pointing out problems and solutions for this crisis, we fail to take action properly. The doomed to work for eternity part hints at an economical cause for the ecological crisis. When the ones who suffer the most under our climate crisis are the ones with the least economic and therefore political power, the ones who need to sell their workforce to sustain themselves, we can suspect that the ecological crisis and class struggle go hand in hand. Light of Atlantis is a puzzle driven game with exploration at its core. How do you think puzzles can be used as a metaphor for the challenges we face in real life when trying to understand complex ecological systems, where the solutions often seem hidden or obscured? Alex replied, "Good puzzles are constructed to have a kind of aha moment. Puzzle designers sometimes set up a red herring or false assumptions that bring people to a halt and prevent brute force methods. This encourages people to reconsider their assumptions to get to the solution, sparking the aha moment. I imagine learning about and researching ecological systems to create similar moments. We sometimes tend to have intuitions about how these systems might work, but when something doesn't match our current theories, we need to reconsider our assumptions and test new hypotheses until we get the right solution." I asked, "Water plays a central role in the game, both as a mechanic and a symbolic element. How do you see water, often a symbol of life and flow, playing into the broader theme of environmental stewardship or, conversely, environmental decay?" The answer: I think what makes the water so interesting for us is its ambivalent nature. The first time diving into the water with the robot feels empowering in a nonviolent way, being able to move around freely, peacefully, without the active attack option they have on land, dashing into every direction. The first time you come into contact with the water, when you're in the soul form, it hurts you, repels you, or even kills you. But not only the players. The animals present in Atlantis also react to us controlling the water levels. The mosquito sinks helplessly to the ground underwater while the fish thrive in it and vice versa on land. In many puzzle games, the environment is often a passive backdrop to the player's actions. In Light of Atlantis, however, the environment, particularly water levels, is an active part of the puzzle solving process. So, how do you think this dynamic creates a deeper connection between players and the world they are exploring, both emotionally and ecologically? Answer: I think the water mechanic makes players aware of the things affected by it. I've seen many players feel empathetic for the animals in the game, especially seeing a mosquito drown in the water they just turned on. Some people try to do a pacifist run, where they refrain from killing the animals, which is an option we consider when building levels. I wouldn't say that many puzzle games don't actively use water, but I think what differentiates Light of Atlantis is giving the players more power over it. Making water an extension of the players is what deepens the connection between them. The ruins of Atlantis represent a forgotten world with many mysteries. How do you see the game's setting as a reflection of lost knowledge about environmental balance and the potential consequences of neglecting or misusing natural resources? Alex answered, "We definitely see our version of Atlantis as a reflection of our real world crisis, although I wouldn't call it lost knowledge. We rather see a rejection of knowledge. It is clear to us what the climate crisis does and will cost us, and we know what kind of actions need to be taken politically, systemically, but people in power reject those actions. The version of Atlantis that players will discover is a warning sign, but may also be a place of hope." Light of Atlantis avoids traditional combat mechanics and instead focuses on problem solving and exploration. How do you think this choice supports a more ecologically conscious approach to gameplay, where curiosity and collaboration with the environment replace destruction or conquest? The response: I think many puzzle platformers already tend to be less about combat and destruction, but many Metroidvanias have a clearer combat focus. This domain where we are heading towards might be a context where our nonviolent gameplay can be perceived as refreshing and new. We've heard several playtesters say they wish they could play Hollow Knight or Ori, etc., but it was just too difficult regarding the combat. These people tend to love our game because it is more relaxed. We also see this trend in the rise of cozy games that reject combat or stressful gameplay completely. The concept of soul and its ability to move between robots, suggests the fluidity of identity and purpose. How do you think this fluidity reflects how ecological systems are constantly shifting, and how adaptability is key to maintaining harmony within nature? Alex answered, "Harmony might have a too romanticized tone regarding nature, as if it would tend towards a certain state, as if it had a will or purpose. Just like our soul is not bound by the limitations of one robot with a fixed purpose and design in mind, I think nature has its own fluidity without displaying a discrete identity." I asked, "The game's approach to puzzle solving within the ruins of Atlantis also involves elements of discovery. How do you hope players will engage with the themes of discovery in the game, particularly when it comes to learning more about themselves, the robots they control, and the environment they navigate?" We want to add more Metroidvania elements and secrets to the game, so exploration and closely observing the environment will be a crucial part of playing. The environment itself, the world building, will take over a big part of mediating the themes. For example, the demo contains a mural about a snippet of the history of Atlantis, but there will also be clues in the backgrounds that at first might seem like decorations, but can be used to open up new paths. NPCs that the players can help will also tell their own stories and give you hints about the past. I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Alex for his time and incredibly thoughtful responses. The demo for Light of Atlantis takes about 15 minutes on average to play through, and the full game is planned for release in 2026. Let's take a moment to reflect. In Light of Atlantis, players control the flow of water to solve puzzles, with the environment itself playing a critical role in the story. The manipulation of water can both help and hinder the protagonist's journey. How do you think our relationship with nature, especially water, mirrors the balance of power and responsibility we hold in the real world? Have you ever found yourself questioning how much control we should have over other elements of nature? Or how our actions impact the world around us in maybe more subtle ways? Please check out the Light of Atlantis demo and waitlist it on Steam. I've only played a small portion and can attest it's a whole lot of fun. Join me next time when we'll be sitting down with Pedal Twirl Studio to discuss their upcoming Loopip. Until we meet again, please feel so very free to like, subscribe, and share. And as always, thank you so much for being a part of this little ecosystem.